So that metric, I think, is really, really important, really powerful. It demonstrates that this school these schools have really broken that cycle, the association of poverty and achievement. And again, the metric I'm using from Trish's school, top 3% of deprivation. The metric we use for success in primary education is a percentage of youngsters who leave with a level 4 in performance in literacy and numeracy. She had 100% of her youngsters, it was not true, 98% of her youngsters leaving at that level, right? So a dramatic break with the normal expectations, right? That's what we're trying to achieve here, all right? You know, and that's why we need to go a bit deeper to understand how we break that cycle, all right? Because I don't think we are sort of content with incremental change. We want quite sort of transformational change.
And David, too, Trish was able to transform that school in a period of 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
To go from that, bottom 3% of deprivation to
yeah.
achieving 98%.
We will talk about that. That's absolutely right. We'll talk about that later. And it's a very interesting point, actually. Lena's right. The evidence we've got suggests that this can be achieved within a sort of 4 to 5 year time span. In fact, you can get increases in student achievement much more rapidly than that. It takes about the 4 years to really make it sustainable. All right, that's the issue. You can actually increase the test scores with quite dramatically within about 2 years, but it's making it sustainable that takes that bit longer. But we'll debate that as we go through the morning.
David,
Yeah.
there appears to be a mix of students in those two types of schools. And when I think of some of our schools, we've got our deprivation percentage would be almost 90%. So we don't tend to have that.
No,
mix in some of the schools.
And I think that's right in England as well. We were just trying to do this. This actually was more of an amalgam of schools than one school. We're trying to make the argument than that. Yes, and I think that's the case. I think that particularly in these types of schools, you get a predisposition to a student population who are like this, all right? Which actually then makes the success of schools like Trish's and the ones I'm talking about even more impressive. So just to say that these are not the schools I'm going to be talking about just for the next few minutes are not sort of they are maintained state schools. They don't have selection policies. They in the highest category of deprivation. They don't have additional funding, and yet they achieve that. Our inspectors have regarded them as being outstanding, which is the highest category in recent reports. They've received outstanding grades for teaching and learning and leadership in the school overall. And we also can assess school performance using a value-added measure. So which means you can cut out sort of background factors and just sort of measure the value that the school actually contributes to a kid's education. And consistently, their value-added scores are off the Richter scale. So something is going on here, right? And yet, they are facing the sorts of challenges which we are facing as well. Higher than average proportion of youngsters come from poor or disturbed family backgrounds. Many of them are subject to emotional and psychological tension. Attendance is a challenge. They're open to a range of urban ills that often characterize poorer communities, abuse of drugs and alcohol, peer pressure of gangs and fashion, at times overt racism, and all of those tend to attract behaviours which range from the antisocial to violent. And getting these kids ready and willing to learn is a constant challenge. That's why you sort of need although you can get them to actually learn and achieve fairly quickly, it takes a bit longer to break the expectations of the community, and that's really what these schools are actually doing. Does that seem fairly similar? Do you recognise some of that background? So what are they doing? Why are they succeeding? Well, here are some of the factors, and when you think about this, this is quite similar to some of the things that Vic and Graham were talking about on Wednesday. They excel at what they do, not just occasionally, but for a high proportion of the time. There's a high level of consistency in these schools. All right? They have strong values, putting their kids first, but although these are values and this is moral purpose stuff, they actually do it through providing outstanding teaching and rich opportunities for learning. So there's a good translation of the moral purpose into practical action inside the school, and we'll talk a bit more about that as we go through the day.